Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast.
You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today, we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. You know, Jews love to ask questions, and we'll try to get you some answers today. Rabbi Abraham Biderman joins us. He's a Torah scholar, a Musmach. Has rabbinical ordination from Rabbi Reuven Feinstein, alumnus of the Yeshiva of Staten Island. He serves as the managing editor at ArtScroll Masorah Publications, where he lends his professional touch to myriads of popular books and Sfarim, including his own, The Mishkan, member of the board of directors of the National Kiruv Organization, URA, and he also moderates the very popular URA radio show Ask the Rabbi, which is a live program with Rabbi Chaim and Shlita, which brings together Jews of all ages with all different backgrounds to ask questions, and to give them answers. Rabbi Abraham Biderman, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Malcolm.
So let me ask you this question: you're moderating the discussion on the radio, which actually is online. It's not on the radio; it's online, right, with Rabbi Chaim Mintz, who's a big Torah scholar as well. What are some of the questions that come in? You have a book now two books out from ArtScroll, Ask the Rabbi and Ask the Rabbi 2, honest answers to candid questions, and deals with lots of the questions that come up on the show itself. If I had to ask you and say, what are the more popular questions that you get, what would you tell me?
So the questions run the gamut. People want to know about lots of questions about reincarnation, Mashiach, and then you have it goes like, how do I grow my service of God? How do I relate to, and everything dealing with cranky kids and nosy neighbors. It runs from the practical to the esoteric. People are curious about everything. Like you said, Jews ask questions, and as the tagline used to go, inquiring minds want to know. And especially, so whether a person is, there are the people that join each week run the gamut as well. There are people that are literally just making their first forays into Torah observance or Torah study, and it runs the Torah scholars who join as well, and they ask questions. Many of the FFBs, as they say, from birth people,
right.
People that join, they are finding it fascinating because they're finding the background of many of our traditions, many of our observances, many of our customs that are discussed. People ask questions, and that some people don't even think of, and others are too embarrassed to ask, and they're all answered. It's not a forum for halachic questions because those are very specific and very technical, and very often depend on the exact details of the question. But just to read you some of the questions, I'm looking at the table of contents of the two books. So, does hate have a place? Will Mashiach arrive in a donkey or in a limo? Dinosaurs in the age of the earth.
So let's go back. Will Mashiach come on a donkey or a limo? What was the answer to that question?
I don't know. They were rather. I don't have the book in front of me. Actually, let's take a quick look here.
Because I found some fascinating questions. Now you mentioned reincarnation, and we'll get back to the donkey in just a moment. You mentioned reincarnation, and I'm curious because I don't know if it was maybe it was ArtScroll. It was published by a book by Sarah Rigler from Israel about the reincarnated souls from the Holocaust.
We didn't publish that one.
But fascinating book dealing with it. So reincarnation is something which I think FFB, religious Jews, non-religious, would be interested in.
Yes. So Ramin's discussed over here that there's great significance. The donkey is a donkey that he explains that this is the donkey that the Medrash says that this is the donkey that Mashiach rode on his way to bring Yitzchak to the Akedah. So although a limo is more up to date and more convenient and more pleasant, no, Mashiach will be arriving on a donkey, says Rabbi Nance.
I think maybe the possible answer would be, because this is not just a donkey, but the donkey,
Right.
the donkey that right that from the
Yes.
from the sacrifice of Isaac, the near sacrifice of Isaac that we're talking about. I think it shows the consistency of Judaism throughout the years.
Right. That's correct. There's everything has meaning. Raymond's frequently the question comes up frequently about baking their own challah. Women want to know, should they be baking their own challah? So he brings in many of his own personal experiences. He was once in a house, and he heard the mother tell the kids that she's very busy this week, and she's going to have to buy challah. And the kids all started cheering because they didn't like her challah. So he goes on to say that it's nice to bake challah, but you really, if your family doesn't like your recipe, either find a new recipe or buy challah.
So here's the real question: if they didn't like the recipe, should they embarrass the mother?
Well, whether they should or they shouldn't, they did.
Okay, because we can have all different questions about that. Now, I'm
Right.
curious, how do you, as the moderator of the show with Rabbi Mintz, tackle such issues such as intermarriage?
Okay, so Rabbi Mintz is very outspoken about intermarriage, and the questions are live, so they're uncensored. And he's frequently addressed it. If you'd like to know his position about it, he's obviously very against it.
Well, no Orthodox rabbi going to be for it. The question is,
Right.
how do you deal with for example, the question was asked to Moshe Feinstein, as if you sit Shiva, and there used to be in Europe when somebody married out of the faith, the parents had Shiva as if the child
right.
was
So
dead.
he doesn't suggest that, but he does, and he does. I believe it's in one of the books about maintaining a relationship with your child while not acknowledging or lending any validity or acceptance of the intermarriage. So it's a question that's very specific. Again, this is a question, and frequently he tells people they need a mentor and they need, there are many questions in Kirov and there are many questions in outreach that are very specific to the person's situation, and this is one of them. And one of his recurring themes is that everybody needs a rav, everybody needs a rabbi, everybody needs a mentor, a question that is every family has its own dynamic, and every relationship has its own dynamic, and therefore, how you're going to deal with the specific situation is very different in different situations. So he can't address those. And he says, he goes very often. He'll say that's very personal. He gives a general outline, but he says your situation, you have to go to your rabbi and discuss with him, or your mentor, discuss with him how you should deal with your situation. So I think this is one of those. This is one of those issues that, although we don't at all recognize the intermarriage, and of course he says you can't go to the wedding and this and that. There might be exceptions to those rules, and not about accepting, but there might be exceptions to the rules as far as how to interact with them, and therefore those can't be tackled when you're speaking to hundreds of people at a time, and it's going on YouTube, a YouTube channel that's going to be viewed by thousands and thousands of people.
So tell us about Rabbi Chaim Mintz, who he is. He's a very prominent rabbi, but just share with our audience so people get an idea.
Rabbi Chaim Mintz is a fascinating figure because he is not your typical, stereotypical kiruv professional. He's a mashgiach of a major yeshiva of Staten Island. He's been mashgiach there for decades. I believe he was one of the people that Rabbi Ruderman, I know Rabbi Ruderman sent him to Toronto to be among those to start Ner Yisrael in Toronto, which began as a branch of Ner Israel in Baltimore. He was a close disciple of Rabbi Ruderman in Ner Israel. He had a very close relationship with Rav David Kronglas, the mashgiach in Ner Yisrael. Those two people had a great impact on him. He was very close to Rav Moshe Feinstein, who was the Rosh Hashiva in Staten Island. He asked him hundreds and hundreds of questions. And he was very close to the Stipler Gaon. So he's coming into Kirov not with several years of Torah study under his belt. He's coming into Kirov with many, many decades of Torah study under his belt and a vast Torah knowledge. When I came to yeshiva, when I came to Yeshiva about close to 50 years ago. They told me, and I'd never tested him, that he knows the entire Mishnah Berurah word for word by heart.
Wow.
So I would take them at their word. He was a rather young man at the time. He's much younger than I am now, but he gives shiurim still. He teaches in the entire Masechta, on all the yeshiva Masechtas. So his Torah knowledge is vast, and he's coming into this from a position of having studied under and discussed these matters, many of these issues, with Torah giants of the previous generations.
Fascinating. What would you say is the most intriguing or most complex question that you've had to tackle on the air regarding Judaism? Question out of left field, or something that unusual that sticks in your mind?
Well, we have a lot of funny questions, because a lot of questions come with misconceptions. One question this week, for instance, came with why can somebody not dress why can a woman not dress immodestly in front of Orthodox men? And the answer began with, she can't dress that way in front of any man, certainly in front of any Jewish man. But our relationship with Muslims, our relationship with are some of those interesting ones.
You talking about astrology?
What?
You talking about astrology?
No, Muslims.
Oh, Muslim. I thought you said Mazel. Okay.
No. I mean, our relationship with Islam. Interestingly, he went on to explain that we're much closer in belief to Islam than we are to Christianity. They're monotheistic, and they're our cousins. Although Esav is also a cousin, but it was just a very fascinating thing that got it engendered a lot of discussion on the YouTube channel, I know. But in fact, our belief system is closer to Islam. We frequently, people are asked about how it is that we condemn genocide when we're obligated to wipe out Amalek. And he goes on to explain. It's a frequent question, and he explains that we aren't required to wipe out Amalek if they reject the tenets of Amalek, and they reject those beliefs, and they want to accept Judaism, certainly, and even if, I believe he said, even if they don't accept Judaism, but they renounce the Amaleki beliefs, we're not obligated to kill them. So there's a big difference between killing a terrorist and killing just an innocent person.
Does he get that question in context of the Hamas war that they initiated on Israel?
Yes, he's gotten that question. Yes, he has that. Yeah, in that context, he's gotten it before that context, and he's gotten it since then. This week, somebody wanted to know if they should be sending in why are we risking the lives of troops to rescue hostages? And he demurred, because he said you need a group of great rabbis to meet with a group of generals to discuss the statistics and to see what the dangers are and what the risks and benefits are. So sometimes he says, I can't answer that.
Now, Dear Abby, who used to be a columnist years ago, people have personal issues. I think one of the more popular questions was, if you had a tattoo, can you be buried in a Jewish cemetery? Do you still get those kind of questions?
We do get them, and he addresses them. Yes, if you have a tattoo, you could be buried in a Jewish cemetery. That's a myth, right? That's a common. Yeah, it's a common misconception. Many of the people have already heard these questions, and we do often refer people. We keep on telling people, not that we show them off. We don't not take their questions because we don't know the questions in advance. But when sometimes we recommend that people check if they have a common question, that they check our YouTube channel so they can get the answer. They can look up the answer that Rayonance has already given to that question.
And people want to get more information about the YouTube channel or get the books. The books are fascinating. Ask the Rabbi and Ask the Rabbi 2. Honest answers to kind of questions from live Q&A sessions with Rabbi Chaim Minshli, which is published by Art Scroll. So where can people learn more about the shows and also about the books? So
YouTube, you go onto the YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel, Ask the Rabbi. They can look there. They can join every Tuesday night when Rayonance goes live. He goes live at 8:30 with a lecture, and 9 o'clock we open to questions that they can go on Zoom, or they can go on ur.org and see it there. And if they want to order the book, they can go to artscroll.com, and if they enter promo code Brenner, they'll get 20% off on the book. So
wonderful books and a lot of interesting questions. Is the number 3 in the offing?
yes, number 3 is in the offing, and they're also working on a book of questions and answers that Rabbi Mintz has addressed to Torah giants, Torah giants who have passed away, and those questions and answers we hope to get also. So we get his questions too.
Questions, and also answers. Very, very important. So I want to thank you, Rabbi Abraham Biderman, who is a scholar in his own right, and he's a Muslim, as I mentioned, Rabbi Reuven Feinstein. He works for ArtScroll, and he's also on the board of URA, which is a very strong tier of Jewish outreach organization helping people deal with religious issues and people, especially who are not religious, to get them more knowledgeable about our rich Jewish heritage. He's also moderates Rabbi Chaim Shlita's weekly radio, I keep saying weekly show, dealing with questions was asked the rabbi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day, Zev.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.